we have certain behaviors around money. When we have more money, we're just going to exercise those behaviors to a greater degree. So if we are spenders and if we're shoppers, we're just going to do more of that. If we are travelers, we're just going to do more of that. So more money just means we're going to amplify the things we're already doing. Well, if the things we're already doing are leading to undesirable financial situations, more money's not going to get you out of that. It's just going to get you farther into it.
Welcome to the Christ Centered Stewardship podcast with your hosts, Maria Casillas and Nino Villa. Christ Centered Stewardship is a ministry of new money habits designed to equip believers to steward everything God has given them, including their time, talent, and treasure in ways that bring Him honor, glory, and praise. You can join our growing community on Facebook and submit your questions to podcast at newmoneyhabits.com. Now, to begin today's episode, here is Maria Casillas and Nino Villa.
Yeah, I have a quote from somebody I don't think you'd ever expect me to have a quote from on this podcast.
All right.
But it was the notorious B.I.G. who said, "Mo money, mo problems."
I've heard the quote. I've never even heard of the notorious B.I.G.
Oh, a famous rapper from New York, East Coast, West Coast.
I was such a sheltered child. I don't know.
Shot in Las Vegas, maybe.
But I have heard. I've heard the quote, and actually, I think that Mr. Big was spot on. So I actually have lived this on a much smaller scale probably than he ever did. But I have seen this play out in my life as well. That the more money you think, if I just had more money, it would be fine. And then you realize the people in the equation are actually the problem here. And so more money does not make any fewer problems for us.
That's right. So where are we getting all of this? Recently, our partner and co-administrator posted to one of our Facebook groups an intriguing question about if you could change one thing about your current financial situation right now, what would it be? And I couldn't help but see how many people responded with, like, my income or I'd win the lottery. And it was really focused on if I had more money. And I couldn't read that and not do an episode on more money is not going to fix what's going on. It just isn't. Because like the notorious B.I.G. said, mo money just means mo problems.
Okay, so let me just play devil's advocate for just a second and ask you, do you believe that there are some scenarios / circumstances where a little bit of more money actually would help to alleviate some of the problems?
Well, sure. So there is our business partner who posted this often says there's a difference between being broke and being poor. So when somebody is poor, when they are low income and they are just struggling to make ends meet, obviously more money is going to help alleviate that pressure. But if that person doesn't learn how to manage the increase in income, they're just going to go from being poor to being broke. Those things are different, but they feel similar. So yes, there are circumstances in which more money does mean, like, let's get above the poverty line. Let's make more than what we're spending on just the bare bone necessities. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Just want to make sure that people know that we're not completely out of our minds, that we do recognize there are some of those issues or circumstances, but that's not the majority, I'm guessing, of the responses that you're getting on this particular post.
No, I think what we're seeing is people want to win the lottery or increase their income, but we have even people who are admitting like they make too much money already to even be in the situation that they're in. And so I want to rail against this idea that an increase in income just automatically makes everything better, and focus on, okay, what behaviors are driving current situations that would need to change, that if income went up, you'd be able to manage it in a way that was actually helping you rather than just furthering you into the behavior you're already in. Typically, let's put it this way. We have certain behaviors around money. And when we have more money, we're just going to exercise those behaviors to a greater degree. So if we are spenders and if we're shoppers, we're just going to do more of that. If we are travelers, we're just going to do more of that. So more money just means we're going to amplify the things we're already doing. Well, if the things we're already doing are leading to undesirable financial situations, more money's not going to get you out of that. It's just going to get you farther into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, by simple logic and math.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So are there any responses that sort of you recognize that the person owns their own behavior? Like they're like, I'm actually the problem here. If I had to change anything, it would be me. Is there any indication of that?
Yeah, so there was one post that I kind of alluded to a moment ago that the person actually says, I make a crap ton of money, but spend like a drunken sailor, and that needs to stop. So that
Funny.
Screams to me like at least this person understands their contribution to their own situation.
That's funny. Yeah. So the one that kind of jumped out to me for probably a little bit different reasons was this person who said, I wish I had not gotten myself so far into debt. So it doesn't totally answer the question, because it says if you could change one thing, it kind of feels to me like that's futuristically something now. And she kind of looked back. But what I really appreciate about her response here is that she recognizes her role in the mess that she's currently in. And I think so many times it is so easy for us to just kind of be like, everything happened to me and I had no control over this. And, and the thing that would make it better is that more stuff would happen to me and for me, like if I'd win the lottery or if the income went up and all of that. But there's seemingly a lack of, I would go out and get a different job, right? Like it's someone said, I want more money instead of I would like the opportunity to go find more work or something like that. It just, I don't know, but it just seems to be so passive. Like we want everything given to us, not that we're willing to go out and work for it. And I'm, of course, I'm commenting on a bunch of comments that these people just threw out there. They might not have this mentality, but I do see a lot of that. And I'll just give you a non-money related example. The way that I teach my kids, it's more classical, it's more dialectic. And it's so funny because now that I've been doing that with them so long, I start to have conversations like this with my older kids and with my husband, and it drives them insane. And one day we were talking about something and my husband was not in the mood for this. And I was like, so what is what is the root of this word? Like, what does this even mean? Let's try to get to the answer together. And he looked at me and said, I am not going to play this game today. Just give me the information. Just give me the answer. And I, for fun, went back and said, well, that's not learning. You're in order to learn, like we need to be active and we need to be involved in that. And what you're asking for is just being a passive learner. I just want you to tell me everything. And that might work in the immediate, but it's not going to actually help us learn. He goes, well, if you're here and you have the answer, why don't you give it to me? I said, because I might not always be here. And I want you to know how to find that answer yourself, And this is really how I'm talking to my kids, not to my husband. But it's that idea that we need to be an active participant in the solution. And I can't imagine that anyone was thinking that deeply when responding to this particular question. But I do think that our listeners can learn from that. Like, let's be active participants. She recognized that she was an active participant in getting into the mess that she's in. So how do we then become active participants in getting ourselves out?
Which leads me to one of the other comments on the post, Michelle posted, I want to stop using my Amazon card. Sounds pretty simple. Sounds pretty straightforward. How does Michelle become an active participant in the solution?
Well, I mean, the easy response would be stop using the Amazon card. But that's probably too simplistic for what you're looking for. I would probably go a little bit deeper and ask, what is the ultimate purpose for using the card? Because in order to know whether you can stop or how that will affect things, you really have to know what is the purpose for you doing that in the first place. And if you pull back on that, will it completely negate that purpose? Is it going to create different set of problems for you that you don't have right now? But my guess, Nino, is if she's saying, my wish, if I could just change one thing, and that's how Mike posted it. He even specified not 5 things, just one. It will tell you something. I think that if that's the one thing that she would choose, then my guess is that it's creating more issues than it's solving. In which case, I would say, let's figure out what did you want it to do? And what were some of the unintended consequences of that choice? And I think sometimes, in fact, I know all the time, there's always unintended responses or consequences that come with things. Some of them are good and some of them are bad, but there's just this recognition that we can't anticipate everything in every scenario. And so there's always something that was either unintended or at least unanticipated. So what are some of those things, and are they creating more angst in your life, more havoc than what the one thing you were looking to do is actually creating for you?
What I'm hearing you say is, first identify the purpose. There is an intentionality behind these things, or there should be. I think about, I've shared a couple of times on the podcast now, I work with younger adults in their 20s who are getting credit cards for the first time. And the purpose is for security while traveling. So allows me to book my airfare and my lodging and all that. But I have the money set aside already to pay for it. Then it became a question about, well, which credit card would you want to use for that? Do you want something that would have some rewards? Not because we're chasing the rewards, but if you're going to be doing this, why not get a little icing on the cake? And sometimes the Amazon one was in the conversation because I also, this being the client would say, I also shop a lot on Amazon to get the 5% cash back. I'm already doing this, and that behavior is not going to change. The convenience, the pricing, whatever it is, this is where I shop. So why not get the 5% if I'm going to open up a credit card? And so there is an example of purpose with intent, but then the unintended consequence might be, I actually am carrying a balance on this credit card, and that was never the intent. I'm always supposed to have the money set aside to pay for the things I'm putting on the card. So where did I start maybe using the card where it wasn't originally intended? Or am I overspending in a particular category? So yes, I knew I was going to spend on Amazon. Am I spending more because I've made it more convenient, so I'm overspending? And asking yourself, what are these contributing factors, these unintended consequences, or at least unanticipated, as you said?
And as you were talking, my brain just hyper focused on your statement. This is the behavior over here, and that's not going to change. And the reason that I hyper focused on that was because that's where it went wrong. So what I mean by that is there might be, certain things that are, they're absolutely within your budget, and, that there's no need to quote unquote change that behavior as it is in the moment. But because you've kind of put your foot in the sand and said, I'm not going to change this, I think that what actually happens is you change it. You change the behavior, but you change it in the opposite direction than the direction that you insisted you weren't going to change it. And that is where it becomes a little bit dicey. So because it happens, I think, not just unintentionally, but almost subconsciously. It happens so incrementally. It's like the boiling frog. You don't even realize that you're changing it. And you've already said, well, I'm not going to change this behavior. And so there's no checks and balances in place to help you kind of keep those guardrails on there. And all of a sudden you've moved that guardrail much further away from the original intent.
I always appreciate the perspective of, communication, as our partner says, is hard, right? Because like sometimes it's like, what was the intent of what was said? But I appreciate that because it helps us to kind of have a fuller conversation. I think, as I said, that behavior is not going to change. It just meant like, this is like the normal, like what I'm doing, right? Mm-hmm. But then to your point, there is this slippery slope. I do it with the Costco card for gas, right? Like I have a Costco credit card. It's going to give me 5% on gas purchases. So I'm just going to go fill up there. But all of a sudden it's like, well, it wasn't the card being used for inside the store before, but now it is. Well, why? Well, because
I get
2%, 2%, all of that stuff.
4%. Yeah. If you're an executive member, you get 4%, 2 for the membership and 2 for the card.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. And so if you're chasing this quote unquote money back, but you're spending $1 bajillion to get $5 back, it's a slippery slope. And you have to ask yourself, and I'm one who falls into this category as well. So it's this idea of what is more important. And the reality is that 2% or that 4% or 5% isn't really what's driving you. That's the excuse that you're using to justify your behavior. And so that's just the truth. Yep. Your desire for whatever unfettered spending is what's driving you to do that. You're using the card because you don't have to worry about whether or not there's the actual money there as you would on some other card. And so we're using, I'm putting myself in here now, we're using that percentage back as the excuse and the reasoning for doing what we're doing.
So again, more money, more problems.
Right.
Just because we have greater access or means does not mean we haven't gotten to the root cause, which is our behavior, which is going to drive everything. Anytime we're talking about cash back, I'd like to just remind people of the math sometimes, because we hear 5% cash back and it's like, oh, well, I was going to spend that anyway. Sure. Some of it, that's true. And some of it, we all know that that's completely bogus.
Yeah,
you
most of it
ended up
is
spending, because you could.
I'm gonna say this there because we're talking about Costco, and I heard somebody talking about I don't remember the correct term for it, but the idea of like the hot dog and soda being $1.50 there, right? That Costco likely loses money on every hot dog soda purchase that is made. However, that is the thing that gets people in the door so that they go and then spend on all the other things. Right. And those are just some of the same with sampling, right? Like they give away all these samples, but I can't tell you how many times I have absolutely, I was going to say fallen victim, but I'm not the victim. I'm the decision maker, have said, oh, that was really good. I had no intention to buy that when I was there, but now I'm going to go get that. And so there really is this whole play on behavioral and psychology. It's just, they know what they're doing with this stuff. And so we have to be on guard with that and just tell ourselves, no, you know what? We need to call our own BS is what we need to do and say, you weren't going to buy that anyway. Just own it. Recognize that you just got 5% back on something that cost you approximately $15 because you weren't going to get it anyway.
It's called it's very much a thing in marketing. It's called lost leaders. Retailers have lost leaders all the time.
That was the name, and I couldn't. Yes, thank you. Okay,
you're welcome. Walmart, Kroger, Fry's, all of these places, they know, like when they're running a sale or whatever, they know they're going to lose money on a certain specific something, but that's just to get you in the door so that you spend elsewhere. The other thing I was going to say about the rewards, though, is sometimes doing the math and hearing the numbers. Okay, 5% is pretty generous, but still, like, and I got a $300 cash back reward from Costco last year. Okay, but even at 5%, even if that was just gas purchases, how much did I have to spend on gas to get that $300 reward? Let's do the math for a second. 300 is 5% of $6,000. Okay, so again, we can argue and be like, oh, I was going to spend it anyway. A percentage of that, maybe, but there's a great percentage in there that is spent just because, behavior. It all circles back to behavior.
And even if you just spent it on gas, just to, beat a dead horse here, even if you just spent it on gas, there is that still mentality, that behavior of, I'm just going to go drive over here. I'm going to make this trip over here. I'm going to do this. There's still there's a lessened level of intentionality in the way that we use the gas, because we're just like, oh, we would just buy it anyway, or we're going to get this money back anyway. And so if you are just throwing gas on a credit card where it doesn't hurt as much, and again, I use credit cards for gas, so I'm not saying you shouldn't, but I'm just saying that there is a reality. If you're using a credit card for gas, you are likely to spend more on gas. And some might say, well, that's not true because the gas costs what the gas costs. Yes, but you don't drive all the different places. If you know that you have a limited amount, then you start to plan differently how you're driving and how many times we go to this place, or how do we put our errands together so that I'm not having to go as often. There really does become an intentionality when you're limited to a certain dollar amount for gasoline.
You are absolutely, positively correct. There is a different level of intentionality. I remember when the wife and I had like cash envelopes for gas, and it was, we still do like a digital envelope, whatever, but there was this, hey, we budgeted $50 every 2 weeks, every pay period for gas. And it would drive decisions about, like, are we going from the West Valley to the East Valley 4 times this month? No, we are not. Right? Whether that was gas prices are on the rise or whatever that is, but you pay closer attention. And so you make different decisions. And the same thing with, even going out, I would say, my wife would say, I want to go to this place and pick something up. And I'm like, yeah, but you're going out that way tomorrow to take the kids to dance. So why don't we just wait until tomorrow? Because to your point, otherwise it's, hey, like every day, let's just make this 20-mile one-way hike, 40 round trip. That starts to eat at your gas. So absolutely. Intentionality.
And then it's easy to just say, oh, it's because the gas prices went up, so I can't afford gas. And it's like, that's true, and you're making these decisions that are making it worse for yourself. So I think that's the other piece of it too, is that there are circumstances that we can't control, and yet sometimes we lean into those circumstances as the excuse for our poor behavior choices, I guess I'll say. I don't want to say bad, but just the ones that are not serving us very well. And then we let ourselves off the hook to say, and we need to maybe stop doing that a little bit, own a little bit more of our role in those decisions so that we can make those changes. Because unless you're in politics or, you have a way to change some of those circumstances, the only thing you can actually control is you. So it's time to take that back.
There was a word correlation that you just made a moment ago that I just want to kind of call out and let our listeners hear it again. You said, when we make poor choices, and then you kind of clarified, you said, that aren't serving us. I want our listeners to hear that. It's not that you made a bad decision, but when you are making decisions that do not serve you well, it's a poor decision, and being able to call that out. I just wanted to bring that to the forefront. That leads us into our challenge for this week, though. So our challenge for our listeners this week is, instead of focusing on answering that type of question, like what's one thing you would change, and it being something external, I want you to turn that internal, specifically to a behavior. What's one behavior you would change to improve your financial situation?
Love it, and challenge accepted.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Christ Centered Stewardship Podcast. Follow us on your favorite social media platform for more encouragement and support. And until next time, may the Lord keep you in perfect peace as you set your sight on Jesus.